Hello and welcome back to the Goat Cave podcast. Today is episode 50, and I gotta tell you guys, I am so excited because today's guest is by far one of the most important people in the BMX industry. He came from a racing background and then took the freestyle world by the storm in the 1990s when he rode for companies like S&M, Standard, DK, and of course, Terrible One. He then went on to create two of the most respected and biggest BMX companies in the world. In the year 2000, the BMX world changed when he and Chris Moeller started a company called Fit. And with the help of an amazing team, the riders at Fit, as well as Fit, became some of the biggest in the world. However, no one could have guessed what would happen in the September of 2009 when he cut all ties with Fit and brought half of the Fit Pro team with him to start a new company. This company would go on to compete with Fit, and after a few months, it would become one of the biggest companies to date. After 10 years, they still have those 4 Fit riders, well, 3 at this point, actually. They have been noted to be the greatest BMX team in the world with riders like Chase Hawk, Chase Dehart, and Dakota Roche. This company had the opportunity to work with one of the largest running shows on television, The Simpsons. I can't believe I'm able to say this, but today we are speaking with the one and only Robbie Morales of Cult Bikes. Robbie, how are you?
Very good. Thank you for that intro, Cam. You did your homework.
Thank you. Yeah, I really tried to make sure I did a good job this time. So let's jump way back here and talk about when you first got into riding. How did you get started?
A couple neighborhood kids rode, and I kind of saw them and just got sparked on it. I kind of begged my dad to get me a BMX bike. He actually got me well, my first bike had a gas tank on it, like a plastic one. And my friends would like fill it with water and it would be like really annoying. So I kind of hated that bike. But then I got a Diamondback Silver Streak. And then from there on, we had some jumps in the woods that we rode. And then obviously, we got into racing at an early age, and then I just fell in love with it from the beginning. And the main thing was just being able to kind of have freedom and be able to ride and find out what's going on in surrounding kind of cities or towns, and just being kind of in charge of my own destiny. I could just go wherever I wanted, and it wasn't a team sport or anything like that. I could just do what I wanted to.
What I love about BMX is that it's always been like that since day one, like everybody that's into BMX always has that same feeling of, there's no teams, there's none of that. It's just about you and your bike, I really like that.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. So then the bike with the gas tank, that really took you pretty far, when you think about it.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. I didn't hate it or anything, but like it was just a weird bike, and I think it might have had a banana seat, it was like early 80s, and then so by like 85, I think I was like 13 or so, and I got like the Diamondback, and then it was a chrome frame with blue anodized parts, and I was just so geeked on it. And I actually would love to find it, that bike today. They're just kind of hard to find, and I love all the old school collectors that nerd out on that shit, but I haven't been able to find it yet.
Yeah, that stuff always blows my mind, especially because like my dad, he's a skater, and the whole house at his place is just filled to the wall with like brand new skateboards that have never been opened. He has boards from Tony Hawk, Rodney Mullen, like all this stuff. So whenever I see somebody that's doing it with bikes, it just blows my mind because bikes on average are 4 or 5 times the amount of a single skateboard, sometimes way more than that, and that's just average. And then you take into the account that it's a collector's and everything. Yeah, it gets real pricey.
Absolutely. And it's crazy that they keep them in the dialed condition, like brand new, never been ridden. I can't imagine that. I haven't saved any. I don't have anything. Like I either gave it to a homie or who knows where it is. But yeah, I wish I saved a lot more.
Yeah, I guarantee one of those Simpsons bikes is absolutely brand new, probably never even out of the box. Like that would be crazy.
I think we have one in the kind of in our archives. I was smart enough to save one of each, and then If we do like a collab bike, we try to save that one, but those special ones, but yeah, everything else is gone.
Hell yeah. Well, who were some of the riders that you looked up to growing up?
So I was lucky enough I bugged my parents again, and they sent me to Woodward Camp early on. And so there was actually a race program at Woodward Camp in the early days. So the top pro racers were there, like Mike Miranda and, who else was there? Oh, man, like guys like Greg Grubbs and, Greg Hill and these like really, fully sponsored factory pros, and I was like just so wide-eyed and like, I would listen to every word they told me. And even if they told me I needed a part or a product, I just dove right into it. I think I bought an 8-inch brake lever from like Mike Miranda because he told me I needed it, and I fully believed him, and it was ridiculous. Nobody needed an 8-inch brake lever, but I was just so enamored with kind of the looking up to the pros at the time, and it was really cool. Woodward's program, they had it was like racing for the first year, and then they had a bit of freestyle the second year, and obviously racing faded out eventually, and it turned into just a freestyle camp. But it was so cool to be able to go there at an early age.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that all these years later, Woodward is still around, and it's still, paving the way for a lot of the pros that we see today. Like, there's a couple kids that are local to here that I honestly, truly believe are the next, like, up-and-coming huge pros. And they are all Woodward counselors in the summer. That's where they go all summer long. Like, it's just insane to think that, like, all these years later, it's still doing its purpose, which is awesome.
Absolutely. And I think that was cool for me to go as a camper. And then, maybe like, 10 years later, I was able to like, go as a pro instructor. I was really hyped on that. And then, even the people that work there and own that, they would always, kind of remember like, oh, you were a camper. And, and then I was probably a bit of a headache, like I caused a lot of trouble when I was there, but that's probably why they remembered me. But, and I like what you're saying. I think it does do a good service for, especially if you can work there and kind of be able to ride every day and kind of progress. And it's definitely something that, I suggest serious riders do just for the experience of being able to ride pretty much every obstacle that has ever been made in BMX, like every day. You have just an unlimited amount of opportunities there.
Yeah, absolutely. And like when you think about Woodward in Pennsylvania, they even have the little mini mega, which I mean, definitely not little, but still, it's one of those things that like anybody that wants to be an aspiring like mega ramp guy can go and learn on a tiny ramp. Like that's awesome.
Absolutely.
I think that is like such a cool thing. That place literally has everything except for what, like a full loop, and you don't really see people doing loops, but
yeah, totally.
Oh, man. So let's dive into your racing career. You raced for 13 years before switching to freestyle, right?
Yeah, and I think, I really enjoyed it. It was a cool family thing to do. My folks were supportive, and they, we would go to the races together, and, I really enjoyed it. Best time. And then it obviously, as I progressed, it got more into like going to the races that had like, trails in the city, or dirt jumps in the city where the racetrack was. That way you could kind of do both and, kind of make a weekend of it and really enjoy it. And then obviously when I made it to, kind of taking it serious and, be kind of, I think I won like a 18 and over expert NBL championship. So once I did that, then I turned pro, and then I won an A pro championship, and then I turned double A. Double A is the highest level at the time. And, then it was like serious. And I made it a couple seasons in that before I got burned out. It was just very, very intense. You had to train a lot. And, it just kind of just burned me out a bit. And then, basically got more into kind of trail riding and street riding and ramps, and kind of just slowly kind of faded out of it. Kind of when clipless pedals came in, the sport had changed quite a bit. And I just, a lot of the guys like, Brian Foster and Todd Lyons and Fuzzy and guys like that, we were kind of over it by then. They stayed in it a bit longer, but I was more kind of already on my way out, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was reading in earlier that, you know, clipless pedals was one of the things that when they came out, that's kind of when you were getting out of it. And something that I think is kind of, you know, a good point is that when you know, kind of fell out of it, everything was being super serious. And I find that at least freestyle and like street and everything, people do obviously take it super, super serious. But for the most part, it's still a session with your friends. You know what I mean? Like when you go out to film a video with a crew, it's all about having fun at the end of the day.
100%. And I think I was just kind of searching for that vibe again because, you know, racing definitely had that, you know, early on. And then when it got, you know, way more serious, it kind of lost that kind of vibe. And I was just kind of searching for that again, and to kind of find it, you know, with you know, a similar group of friends and be able to kind of progress all over again. And, you know, that's the funny thing. Even a lot of the video footage I have early on, you know, literally kind of learning as I went. I wasn't really ever, you know, so polished to the point where, you know, I kind of set out to, you know, kind of film something that I was really confident of. I kind of was like winging it because we had to like, you know, we spent all those years racing, you know, so then we kind of had to like, kind of just figure it out, you know, trial and error quickly, you know, on the freestyle side. So, you know, I think that's what was even more attractive to me as well. It was a whole new kind of challenge, and it seemed way more natural, you know, way more kind of organic.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, moving on from racing, you can see a lot of pros that are, you know, big name pros, Brian Foster, you know, Corey Walsh, Chase Hawk, all of these guys were racers beforehand or had some hand in racing. And I think that plays such a big part in their style, as well as, you know, other riders that have raced. They always have that style where, I don't know, they can just go fast at anything and be able to go the highest, the fastest, the furthest. What do you think racing did for you in that kind of way? Like a lot of your freestyle stuff, you were just flying. Like I mentioned to one of my old school buddies the other day that I was going to have you on the show. And the first thing that he said was Robbie Morales, the guy who used to like just go the fastest and the furthest.
Dude, that's so cool. Cause I think that was the mindset we had. We were just trying to jump stuff. You're trying to emulate stuff that you were confident in. And that was, you know, going fast and jumping shit from the race background. And I think, you know, when you see Chase Hawk and Corey Walsh, guys like that, you know, BF, like you said, they have such a mastery of the bike because they have that kind of control and speed background that they got from racing. Then they have a creative mind that they can apply it to so many obstacles and so many different situations and actually be in control. You know, I think Hawk's interesting, right? Like he gets smoother as he goes faster, and Corey as well. Like when Corey starts carving a pool, you're like, oh, okay, you know, this is wild. And then as he builds speed, he's actually getting more in control the faster he goes. And it's that's like the next level, you know. And it's really cool that I can kind of, you know, watch that and be around that now. And it's definitely from the race background that they have so much control.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been dying to get into BMX racing just because I think that it would help really build a lot of control. And I've been riding for 10 years, you know, like it's still something that I think I should do just because I think it would help.
I think the best thing about it now is it's kind of come full circle to where you can go out on a Sunday afternoon with the homies and just bring your freestyle bike and just race that thing and just have a good time. And you know, just ride the track like you would ride trails, or, you know, just have fun. And it still can give you that feeling of like just being able to do something cool on your bike. You know, obviously it's uber competitive with the Olympics and all that shit. But, you know, I think lately I've noticed that, like, you know, sometimes we'll even go, you know, we'll go and hop the fence, you know, at a local track around here, just to kind of ride the track because it's fun, and, you know, carving a berm and, you know, jumping a set of doubles. It's the best feeling. And, it doesn't have to be, so competitive anymore. It's just about having a good time. And I was excited that I went to a race recently, and there was obviously the competitive kids that are trying to win and all that. But there was another vibe of like a group of kids, they just had jeans and a t-shirt on, they might even have like their girls with them, their chicks with them. And it was just like a funny thing. And, one guy went over the berm and they were all fucking laughing, and just like, it was just a good time. And that's why I started. So I was like, oh damn, this has kind of come full circle.
Hell yeah. That's really cool to see.
Yeah.
One of the things that I love about this park that's, it's about 2 hours from here, but they have an amazing concrete park, and they used to have a really well-maintained BMX track right beside it. So like, you go there on a Sunday, just like you said, and if there wasn't any races going on, you could totally just fly around the park, go and do a lap on the track, come out, do some more stuff. It was literally like 100 feet from each other, which was awesome.
Yeah. And I think that's why now I like pump tracks so much. Like, I really enjoy going to a pump track. They're so fun and, kind of like low impact type stuff, and anyone can do it. So, it kind of brings it back to that, like, hey, let's just have a good time and not be so serious, all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's move on from BMX racing. I want to talk about the early days of freestyle with Robbie Morales. So over the years, you rode for many companies, including S&M, Standard, DK, and Terrible One. I would really love to hear about how you got hooked up with Standard.
Standard was rad. It was such a core company. Obviously Rick Moliterno was coming off of being sponsored by Haro for many years and always kind of breaking those bikes. So, he kind of took it upon himself to make a better, more responsive bike. And, a lot of it was about product development and kind of, how to make BMX better, in general. And so I was obviously drawn to it. And we were at a dirt jumping contest at Posh in Pennsylvania, and they had like a roller and then a set of doubles. And I jumped all three of them. And he gave me $50 and a set of handlebars. And I was just, because Rick was there at the event, and I was just blown away. I thought it was the coolest thing ever. And he had mentioned, hey, if, we may do some race stuff, if you're interested, let us know. Cause I was still racing at the time. And, I gave him a call a couple of weeks later, and then, we came out with a race bike first, and then, it kind of just progressed from there. And, I went to Davenport, Iowa, where they're from, for a couple of their jams with Joe Rich. He took me there, and, we had, an amazing time. It was a really special time because they were pioneering, product development, tricks. They were all, Kurt Schmidt was an amazing rider ahead of his time. Rick was amazing. It just, Taj, Joe, they had the coolest team, and then when I kind of got on, I kind of brought the trail side to it. So, Ground Chuck and Punjab and those guys, I kind of brought those guys and Jerry Bagley and, guys like that to the fold. And, then at that point, it was just the most well-rounded, kind of team at the time.
Yeah, and you mentioned a name there, Jerry Bagley. So he's actually brothers with Raj from the 9 Club, if you guys know that skate podcast, which I find...
Totally. We would try to get Roger to film us when we were younger. He did a couple times, but he was more on the skate thing, and Jerry was like the younger, annoying brother. So yeah, we used to bug Raj quite a bit, but it's funny, man.
Yeah, he's really made a name for himself, and like listening to what Roger did, he used to film on the set of like Viva La Bam, which growing up, that was my favorite show. Like I'm only, 24 right now, but I used to watch that show all the time when I was super young, and absolutely loved it. And I thought that, it's kind of cool to come from a dad who is really into skateboarding. He's skated for over 30 years, and then, hop on a bike. And when I really started to show an interest in BMX, instead of being, kind of weird about it, he totally endorsed it and even picked up a bike for himself just so that we could do something together. I thought that was like, that has always played such a big role in, why I love this.
Man, and that's cool. That shows that your dad's open-minded and he was just kind of down with you doing what you wanted to do. I think that's much respect for that.
Yeah, and I mean, unfortunately, we all see it. Like, certain skaters just aren't into BMX. I get it, man, whatever. Like, if you want to hate, I guess, that's your thing. But there are certain skaters that absolutely love BMX, and one of those guys would be Chris Cole. So, yeah, let's talk about how Chris Cole actually got hooked up with Cult. Well, he actually owns half of Cult, does he not?
He's just he gave me some startup money, so I gave him some points on the back end, almost like kind of just like an investor in it, And I think it was a situation where, he knew the troubles I was having with it, and he was a friend, and he was doing really well. Obviously, he just won Street League, and he's just a homie, and he offered, hey, I have faith in you. I really think you can do your own brand and kind of get it done, and you just need, kind of the means to get it going. And, he lent us some money, and, it's been awesome ever since. And, we're still super tight. A lot of times he just pops in with color ideas or kind of, soft good ideas for the brand, kind of trip ideas. He has such a wealth of knowledge of being, a pro skater for so long that, he's helped me at critical times where, like, after we've done like a full length video and everybody was kind of burned out and tired after dedicating so much effort into it, he was kind of there to be like, hey man, make sure you have something ready to go right after that to keep the team motivated and busy and not kind of get a hangover from the project. So some of his advice has just been amazing. And, we're blessed to have the guy, as a homie.
Yeah, absolutely. And that blew my mind when I heard that the first time, because I think I seen it in a free lunch interview years ago. And that was like, I don't know, it was just so cool to me that BMX and skate could come together and create, at the time, one of the best brands. And to this day, even, like, I seriously have put my name behind Cult so much on this show and just said that, like, you guys are my favorite brand, and there's a lot of reasons for that. And I think, the fact that skate and BMX kind of created it really is one of those reasons.
I do take a lot of cues from skate. Obviously, we want to keep our own identity and forge our own path, but it's nice to kind of, see their industry as a whole and kind of how it operates. And obviously it has its problems just as BMX does. But I think the main thing is, there's a few core principles that you can learn from them. And then, what I've kind of held true to. And, I still to this day want to continue to progress the brand in the best way we can and make BMX look the best it possibly can be. And I think that's one thing skate always tries to do. I feel like there's passionate people on every level, from, product design to marketing to the media, to the videos, to how everything is kind of packaged and put out to the public. And it just looks fucking generally pretty cool, and I think BMX is actually even cooler. It's just that we need more creative people, kind of like yourself doing the podcast, to take it upon themselves to do things to get the right shit out to the masses and the public. That's the one thing I've been struggling with lately, with such a dilapidated media right now in BMX. It's really hard for brands to get their message out, and even harder for a rider to get his message out. So, the landscape is changing so quickly. It's forcing the brands to get more creative and kind of find ways to market themselves.
Absolutely. And honestly, I really appreciate that you would include my name in there. BMX has given me, everything that I have. Like, I'm sitting in my office right now and, I just look around and see all the artwork and stuff that I've been given from guests and everything. Like, it's always done so much for me. And like, as a kid who never fit in a small town growing up, like, it really gave me an escape. And I don't want to jump too much into it because I've talked about it on the show a couple times, but yeah, I just wanted to always give back to BMX because it's done so much for me and like my community, like I host jams almost every year. I try and, do something for the community just because I know that it needs it. And that if there aren't people doing it, like, you've got to step up and do it so that people can enjoy it,
Totally. And I think that's the thing. And then we can build off of each other. So as long as I know that you're in your area busting your ass to make it a better thing, it's going to help me be motivated to make it a better thing in my area. and then it can just kind of snowball like that. And I think, and then you're able to collaborate because you're like-minded. You've already done events. You've already done, podcasts. You've done these creative things. And then, I can vibe off of that and try it in my area, and then with my friends, and then we can combine, and that's how a community is built. And you have to take care of that community. And I think for a long time, a lot of the brands have been selfish, and they don't like doing that because it is work, but that's the only way this thing's going to survive, especially in how times are changing now.
Absolutely. And you make a great point there. Anyways, I want to jump back to standard because I had a couple more questions that I forgot to ask you there. So what was the process of getting your standard pro frame, the Trail Boss?
So we had done the race frame, the 125R, and it was really light and, kind of maybe like if you taste a big set of doubles at the trails, might not survive it. So, our idea was like, hey, let's make the race geometry on a trail frame, basically, but just a beefier tube set, head tube gusset there, and kind of just kicked around ways to make a little bit, still a light bike, but still, solid enough to kind of handle some of the trail and street riding we were doing. And luckily, the name Trail Boss came from one night I was at the Shoreham BMX track, and a kid named Mark Spiegel handed me a sticker that I think it was like a suspension company called Trail Boss, and he was like, "Hey man, you're the boss," type thing. And I thought that was cool, and I just thought, yeah, this is really cool. Like we'll call the frame that. And then ironically, Standard still makes the frame to this day, and I have, obviously mixed feelings about it because, it's not like I see anything from it, but at least it's out there and it's kind of cool. And I've actually met kids who have the bike, have a Trail Boss, and they're like looking at me and they don't even know that was my signature bike. It's like kind of comical at this point, but it definitely was a good era, and I had a lot of fun during that time.
Yeah, and that bike was so good. I've seen a couple of them. I've got one pulled up right now from BMX Museum, and that bike just looks so good. Like everything about it, at least the build that this guy had, is awesome.
Yeah. The graphic artist at the time was Ted Nelson, and he was amazing graphic artist from Connecticut. And then the colors we always picked were on point. Standard was like a lot of military scene, a lot of tan, a lot of army green, a lot of brown, kind of tougher looking colors, and those bikes were always fucking badass.
Hell yeah. So there's actually an article that I forgot to pull up here, so I'm trying to do it now, but it's through Red Bull, and the Trail Boss, the 1997 version of it, was actually put down as one of the top 10 bikes ever made, and that was it was at number 5. So that's pretty cool that there's an actual article on the Red Bull website that somebody made just about that,
Dude, that's awesome. And I think the frame was important at the time because, like I said, there was either like really heavy freestyle bike or really light race bike. So this kind of was the compromise in between, so you could kind of do both on it.
Yeah, exactly. Alrighty, let's see here. Oh, so, what was it like to be a rider on Road Fools 5? The lineup there was just insane. It's crazy to think, how many BMX legends were actually in that lineup there. So there was Garrett Burns, Mike Escamilla, Dave Frymouth, Matt Hoffman, Jay Miron, and just so many more. That had to be like literally probably one of the best BMX trips of all time, I'd say.
I'm glad you picked 5. 5 was always dear to my heart because I think there was a good mix of characters, like you said, funny guys like Ralph Sinisi or Troy McMurray, and then really serious guys like Jay Miron and Frymouth and those guys that were like uber really, good at riding and rooftop and stuff like that. And then there were like guys like us that were along for the ride who wanted to just have a good time. Like me and Troy clicked up pretty tight on that trip in particular. And Matt Hoffman was on it. It was so random, just a mix of dudes. And kind of the terrain, the area of the country we're in, like New Orleans was a crazy city. It was so weird and kind of eerie, you know what I mean? And then, I think, it's just another one of those things where we were kind of I was learning as I went. I think I had just put pegs on for the first time. I didn't even really know how to use them. And, it was just enjoying BMX and positive vibes in sessions where it wasn't competitive. It was just all about a good time. And, those are the best trips, when you can go with your friends and you can just fucking go and have a good time and not worry and stress about stuff and not a care in the world, just where the next spot is the best time.
Absolutely. And the lineup again, like I said, is just so crazy, and, but I think there's one question that a lot of people really want the answer to. And, that is, did you ever recover from the crash during the Great Finger Bike Extreme Games of 1999, where you were going to do a gap to rail, but, when you were in the air, you thought about fourth grade lunch where you copped a feel and missed the front peg?
Oh man, I can't believe you remember that. Yeah, I think when you're literally in a bus for like 8 hours driving, you start to lose your mind. And doing the finger bike thing was just, people think it was like staged or I had it like, kind of set up or something. It wasn't like that at all. Basically, they had gotten sponsored by the finger bike company at the time, and there was a bunch of these toys on the bus, and some of the toys just matched up incredibly well. For some reason, Taj had made a Joe Rich doll, and the Corvette. There was a little toy Corvette, and then Dave Mirra actually drove a Corvette at the time. Like, how did that line up? So it kind of naturally just lined up, and I just kind of was losing my mind after a long drive and just kind of freestyled it, and we were like literally in tears laughing so hard and how much fun it was.
That clip right there is seriously one of my favorite clips of like any Road Fools. And I think it literally just goes to show like how much fun Road Fools is, or how much fun it would have been. Like, it's just so crazy to me. And I just love it. Like, there's so much stuff that's happened in Road Fools, but that one, like that clip specifically is just, locked in the back of my head. I love that clip. I was like, that was the first thing that I looked up today, was to try and see like, some of the stuff you said in there. And I absolutely loved it.
Dude, that's so cool. That you remember that too. It's funny to this day, even Nyquist will give me a little bit of shit about it, when I see him. So people definitely remember it, especially if I included them in it.
Oh man, I love that like half the people that you did with it were actually on the bus there too, because I bet that would have been absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, and then I made fun of myself too, so anybody could get it. Anybody could get it on that one, and even to this day, I don't have a finger bike setup in my office, but I definitely have a shrine. And then it's cool because we work with Tech Deck now, and they still do the finger bike. And to have an actual Colt finger bike now in Target in stores is like so rad. So shout out to Steve James over at Tech Deck for hooking that up. And it's funny. Like, I'm like, wait, I can't believe we actually have a Colt, finger bike. And then the latest one came with like a picnic bench or like a dirt jump, so they're actually even getting cooler. So who knows, man?
Yeah, I love the beginning of like where you're making fun of yourself. Like, Robbie drops in. Oh, he manualed the double.
like I wouldn't, right? Like, yeah, it was obvious what I was going to do. Classic.
Oh man. Yeah, I love that clip. Alrighty. So let's move on to Fit Bikes. So back in the year 2000, you had come up with the idea of working on a company that would include some of the most influential riders of all time. Those names being Brian Foster, Mike Aiken, Nate Hansen, and of course, Van Homan. You got to work with S&M's owner, Chris Moeller, on creating a company known as Fit. Fit became one of the most popular brands under your direction very quickly, and over the years managed to continue to boost the image of Fit. Can you tell us about being the brand manager at Fit?
Definitely. I think Fit was really interesting for the time because at first it was supposed to be just a really grassroots small company, obviously under S&M, and Moeller had given me the chance to start it and kind of quarterback the whole thing. But very quickly on, once a lot of key riders heard that I was doing it, they were interested. You know, you have Brian Foster, Van Homan, Edwin De La Rosa, Mike Aiken, those guys kind of came on pretty quickly after we had started it. And pretty soon it went from just kind of a small grassroots brand within a year to one of the best teams in the game. And then, you know, the product line was growing super quick. The riders were pushing the what you could do on a bike, and, you know, guys like Mike Aiken that were just so far ahead of their time and just so influential were, you know, making the brand, you know, kind of make these huge gains very quickly, you know? So, it was a tough time in my life when I started it. I broke my foot, and, kind of T1 kind of was coming to an end for me, and they gave me their blessing to go ahead and do, you know, to move on. And I was able to kind of, you know, quickly ramp things up with the help of the team, obviously, and Moeller. So, yeah, in the early days, I really enjoyed it. And I loved, you know, it felt, you know, it was my baby. So it definitely, I had a lot of passion towards it.
Absolutely. And, you know, something I wanted to mention is that when you were at Fit and the way that Fit is now, I feel are like two different eras. And, you know, I definitely still love Fit to this day, but you can see a lot of the work that you put in is still there, which is crazy to think that was, you know, 11 years ago. And it's still like, you can see some of the stepping stones that you made for Fit in that way, you know, which is pretty cool considering that Chris started S&M years before that as well.
Yeah, I think it's funny when, you know, me and Rich Herschel laugh, they'll repop some of the graphics that we were responsible for when we were doing it. And, you know, I think it's amazing because it shows that it, you know, can stand the test of time, although it is a very different brand now. And I think that's what's so cool about Cult. We were able to branch off and create a completely different vibe and brand, you know, and not make it, you know, because I think that's one of the short points of BMX is the fact that there's too many brands doing the same thing and expecting a different outcome. And that's just never healthy. You know, it's just too much of the same shit. So whenever you can kind of branch off and create something new. And I think for Fit at the time that was new. And I think obviously now with Cult, it's completely different as well. So, that's what I kind of strive to do.
Absolutely. And with Cult, you know, I think one of the things that really draws me towards Cult is the branding and the image that you guys have created, in the fact that it is so different from any other brand. Like, you know, if you watch a Cult video, you'll instantly know within 10 seconds before you see any logos or anything that it's a Cult video. You could take all the Cult logos and stuff off of one of the complete bikes, and you would know that it's a Cult bike. Same with the frame, same with everything. And I think that's what's so cool about Cult and your brand. You know, you guys really did it right.
Oh, thank you for the kind words. I think that's one, you know, even a couple of our slogans that we stand by, you know, maintain every day. We try to maintain our brand story and creation story and brand image, like, in everything we do, and we try to keep it consistent. And Adam Roy was instrumental in the graphic look of it, and Vish is instrumental in the video look of it. And, you know, obviously 10 years on, you're going to need help. So, you know, we've kind of brought in the Good Feeling guys with Javier Garcia and Jeremy Gutierrez. They've been adding their bit of flavor to it lately and kind of keeping it fresh, but still consistent and kind of the same brand image that we've always had. So, yeah, that's the challenge, right? When you're kind of in charge, you're steering the ship, and you want to make sure you don't get off course. And I'm very passionate about that, you know, and kind of keeping it in the same vein all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, it's just so cool to me that you guys were able to do so much, you know, and like you were saying, all the, like, you know, video work, all the artwork, everything is just, it works so perfectly. And you can tell that, like, I don't know, I just feel as like a video guy who's done full-length DVDs, who's done that stuff before, it's so difficult to try and fill somebody else's branding. Like, I've only ever done my own, which is nice because I have complete creative control on it. But if somebody needs to come in, that's a big responsibility that you're putting on somebody. And I got to say, Vish 100% fills that role very well. You know, like, it is just so cool that like he's able to come in and do everything the way that, you know, when I watched the newest cult video, like you know, where you guys were in Arizona, it feels
Yeah.
exactly like the 2010 Let 'Em Talk video, which was what made me fall in love with cult.
Oh, that's cool. And I think it's interesting you say that because we've talked about it before. You know, I think if he was going to make his own video without Cult, you know, it would look a lot different than Cult, you know, the Cult videos. But that's because, you know, he's a creative person and he has his own views, but he's smart enough, you know, and reliable enough for us to understand what Cult as a brand needs. So he works kind of more in those parameters rather than just kind of being like, oh, you know, I'm making this video, I'm going to make it the way I want. He understands that it's a collaborative process and we kind of all put our kind of, you know, 2 cents in and that kind of shapes the look and feel of the whole brand. And we try to keep that consistent. And I think, you know, a lot of people ask me like, oh, well, what do you do, you know, day to day? And it's like, it's so hard to explain because there's so many aspects. You know, I may work on a video project with Vish for a little bit, and then I may pack some boxes, and then I may, you know, design a product or, you know, talk to a distributor or a bike shop about you know, an issue or it just never ends. And I think, you know, that's one of the beauties of having a small business is you got to wear a lot of hats and you have to have a lot of patience and a lot of dedication to kind of not get burned out. But at the end of the day, when you see the finished product, it's that it makes it all worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. And like going back on the branding, even the B-roll that you guys use in your videos, like sets it so far apart from any other company, you know, which I really love.
We used to joke around about like, you know, if you fuck the B-roll up, like, you know, hey, can you roll through that puddle again? Or, you know, something like really cheesy, you know, and like, it actually felt like some brands had done that. Like just like staged a B-roll shot, you know, it's like, come on. And that's a natural moment that you either get it or you don't, you know, and you know, there's, you know, some brands kill it with it and they do it really well. But then, you know, then the other ones, you see just the generic high five or the, you know, just the super basic one. And it's like, oh man, there's so much more going on than that, you know? So yeah, we're aware of the pitfalls of B-roll as well.
Yeah, I've always wanted to do a video project on just the most cliche, like make the most cliche BMX edit where it has all of the like.
There's so many you could do, huh?
That's the thing. I'm like, there's so many things that you could do just to make this one video. And the thing is that like, as a creative person who kind of isn't really into that, like if you ever watch any of my videos, my last video, Space Goats, had like a whole other section of just animation throughout it. It's literally like an animated story in between video parts, which is so weird. And like, you don't see that at all. But that was something that I felt
so
like,
sick, though.
that's the thing. That. I felt that it needed that. And like, I went as far as like, you know, doing frame by frame animation with it. And then even crazier too, like, you know, going in and green screening stuff out and then also like making crazy backgrounds and shit in the actual like sky and whatnot. Like I went out and filmed time-lapse videos of the clouds and then would put them on clips that had like a super blue sky. You could just green screen that out and then you've got ridiculously fast clouds and it just looks super trippy and weird. But I don't know, that was something.
Yeah, it goes back to what we were saying, you know, like look at the amount of creativity you put into that sequence, you know, that's what we need. We need more people doing that and taking the time to kind of go the extra mile to progress the whole. People got to understand, you know, I'd like for all of us to win. You know what I mean? Yeah, obviously people run brands and they want to be competitive or whatever. I'm more concerned with BMX getting better as a whole. So, you know, if a company puts out a full length video and I really like it and I see their effort and they busted their ass, you know, I'm going to prop that, you know, I'm going to give, respect to the brands that are doing it right, you know, and the Federals and, you know, Uniteds and Fiends and Kinks, you know, and I respect those brands, you know, they're doing their thing and the more they do their thing, it makes the kind of general community of BMX better. And we need that really crucially right now.
I absolutely love that you just brought up Fiend, because nobody does it better than Garrett Reynolds. You know, like all of their videos have been insane. Even going back to Deadline, which isn't, you know, a Fiend video, but it's just like a lot of the dudes that are in that video are actually on Fiend now. So I guess it is kind of a Fiend video before Fiend was around.
Yeah.
But it's just so cool to me that, like, you know, their branding, they've done it just like you guys, where it's so different and creative, and like it's all about that team and their personality rather than what the viewer is going to want, you know?
Absolutely, man. And I think that's the cool thing. You get different flavors, you know, they do it their way. We do it our way, you know, and you put all that together. And now as a rider, you have a lot of choices you can make. And it's an exciting time to be in BMX. It just needs, I just feel it needs more of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go back to, you know, I really want to talk about the team on Cult, because something that's always blown me away is that you guys have literally the best team in BMX. Like if you take a look on the website on just how many people are on that crew, but maintaining that and keeping it as like, you know, consistent. All of these guys are putting out clips, whether it be on Instagram, YouTube, whether it be in a full length video, all of these guys are doing something within BMX. And it just blows my mind that there's so many names that are just huge, you know, on there. So, like, you know, just a couple of the people, Chase Hawk, Chase Dehart, Dakota Roche, like all of those guys are just insane, and some of the biggest names in BMX, and have been for the last 15 years for some of them. Russ Barone, can't forget him. Yeah. I've always loved Russ's clips. He's just like, I don't know, he's such a style guy. But anyways, you know, Cult manages to actually take, you know, some of the best street riders of all time and put them with some of the best park riders of all time, and then anything in between, you know? I don't know how you guys do it, but it's just so cool.
And I think, you know, at the end of the day, they all embody, you know, what I would want to see in a rider. You know, they're from their attitude to their actually what they do on the bike. It's this really cool mix of like highly passionate, you know, talented riders. And, you know, we may not, you know, they do it in their own way, each one, and they approach BMX in their own unique way. And I think, so whenever we go on a trip, it's so cool because you can, it's different now. It used to be segregated where it was either, you know, a street trip or a trail trip or a ramp trip. But, you know, now we've kind of brought it all the way full back circle where we just get in the van and go, and whatever we wind up at, everybody rides, you know. I think, and even bringing a new guy like, you know, Brandon Began into the fold, you know, and then, you know, he's riding a pool with Corey Walsh and just having an amazing time, you know what I mean? And vice versa, you know, Corey's riding a ledge spot and just dying laughing because he did, you know, feeble manual bar, you know what I mean? And people think, well, Corey Walsh would never do that, but he actually does and has a good time, you know? So that's the beautiful thing, you know. BMX is it's unlimited, and you don't have to be so kind of narrow-minded in what you do. And when I think of the Cult team, every rider kind of embodies what I believe a BMX rider should be.
Absolutely. And, you know, talking about Brandon Began here, Brandon Began has always felt like a Cult rider to me. I don't know why, but like just always. He's always got that style, the clothing that he wears, everything. He just feels like he belongs on Cult. So when I heard the announcement that he was moving to Cult, I thought that was super cool. Like, that is such a great move for him. And it was just another name where, you know, I saw that. I was like, wow, another big name moving over to Cult. Like, that is such a good move on your guys' part, you know?
It's rad you say that, because I definitely was in a situation where me and Brandon would joke around about that. Like, oh man, you know, you ride for Cole one day type thing. And it's super cool that it finally worked out, and it just lined up where it happened naturally. And, you know, we're able to I really am so stoked on what a rad person he is, as well as rider. And yeah, I kind of learned that more and more every day. So it's been super fun.
Something else about Cult that I love is the fact that you guys have brought up so many unknown riders and just put out literally footage that'll be remembered 50 years from now. Like I was watching that clip of Little Juice today, tail whipping El Toro, and
Yeah.
even to this day, that was a couple of years ago. I want to say 4 years ago. To this day, whenever I watch that clip, when that girl is screaming at him and he's rolling up and Vish is like, he's coming, he's pedaling, I still
Yeah.
get goosebumps and that fucking feeling in my chest where like, oh shit, it's about to go down. And I've seen that clip
Totally.
hundreds of times. Like, it's just so crazy to me. And then, to back that up a couple years later with Callan Sturbert's huge rail attempt, it just blows my mind. Like, you guys are constantly putting out footage that's going to be remembered so long from now. People are going to be talking about that for, I would say, ever. Like, those clips in particular, those two, are probably some of the craziest things to ever happen in BMX.
I think it's really, one of the things that I kind of pride myself on is that I kind of know pretty quickly, if a rider has, something going on special, and I think, the guys you just mentioned, definitely Juice is such a unique dude and personality, and Callan is such a savage, just Australian that's just slays everything in his way, and even for like, it only took me like, we were at Texas Toast years ago, and we were at House Park, just normal session, and I happened to see Corey Walsh there, and he took like one lap in the bowl. And I immediately just rode over to him and was like, hey, what is your deal? Like, what is going on? Who are you? What the fuck? And he was just like, oh, I grew up racing. I ride whatever. And I have to make a decision whether I'm going to go on the Canadian Olympic team in a couple weeks and make a go of it at that, or just kind of ride for fun. And I was like, well, call me when you make your decision. And, a couple weeks later, he called me and was like, hey, I just want to ride for fun. And, that's how we kind of got him on Cult and got him going. And I knew immediately that, the amount of power and control he had in one lap around the bowl was, more than enough. And then, kind of similar thing with a lot of the guys, I just kind of see it in them, and I know they have something special. And when you put that together and you try to kind of nurture that and bring that to the people, that's what kind of makes everything look so good.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was something I kept reading about online, is that you've always had an talent for finding the best riders in BMX or the best up and coming people. And it definitely shows, especially with names on the team that, when they first started out, Timothy Thesis is one of them that comes to mind right away. He has such a unique, different riding style than anybody. And you guys have been supporting him since day one, which is awesome.
Yeah, Timmy's situation was like, just couldn't believe the pop he had. Such a natural kind of steezy pop. Was like, it's really hard to, really hard to make a bunny hop look good. You know what I mean? And he kind of just do that on hit, so that, and, kind of just his swag in general. Like, that's what I like. All the guys have their own style. Russ Barone has almost like a surf style, and, Dak has almost like a technical, skate style. And, even guys like, Sean Ricani have such a well-rounded, kind of wooden ramp, but, kind of tech, but then brought it to street, but then can still roast a 20-foot set of doubles, So it's like, it's cool how they can adapt their skill set and their style to everything and make it look good. And that, at the end of the day, it's about what looks good. So
absolutely,
we're blessed to have those guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Sean Ricani, another big name that, when I heard he was going to Cult, was just another one. Jeez, man, that's insane. It's pretty cool, man. And even Jason Watts, he was one that blew my mind because he came to Cult a few years ago, did he not?
Yeah, and then what a skill set on him, right? I've never seen a rider that can do so many unique tricks and have so much flow, but then have so much tech and then so much fun, and then be such a badass all around. Go to the spot, build the spot, shred the spot, whatever, just down for everything. and then, you know, talk about a guy who gets shit done. You know, it's like, I've never seen him not like just completely like own whatever he's doing, you know, as far as like, you know, when we were in Australia and you need a ride from the hotel to the park, he's there with his bus and he just loads it with as many people as possible and makes it happen and gets it done. And then, you know, if they need more obstacles built at the park, he builds the obstacles and then he enters the contest and fucking destroys the obstacle. So it's like, you know, so inspiring. And I think, you know, that kind of goes back to that passion we were talking about creatives and, you know, how, man, there are some really special people in BMX that are like so unbelievably talented that it just needs to be, you know, kind of brought to the surface more on a number of levels, you know, not just from the brand. It needs help, things like podcasts and, you know, I hopefully, you know, print mags like, you know, Endless are still there and, you know, stuff like that. And, you know, we just need help in the media department big time.
Hell yeah. So there was something that I learned earlier today that you've kind of done for quite a while now with your teams. And, that is leaders, suppliers, and connects. Can you explain what that is and how it works?
Yeah. So I think, you know, obviously there was a time where everybody wanted their label, you know, and their category of where they were at on the team, you know, where, you know, I always kind of just thought it was more of a crew, more of a family, and that it didn't really need that. But at the time it was pretty crucial. So we kind of tried to categorize it up and kind of keep it different than everybody just, you know, Am, Pro, or Flow. We tried to kind of spin it a little, you know, and I think now it's even had a new iteration where like, it's kind of almost up to the rider where they want to be and how they want to act, you know, and the media landscape has changed so much and BMX has changed so much as well that, you know, they can kind of take it upon themselves to do it in a few different ways, where before it was just a traditional kind of like, you know, film your video part, bust your ass and turn pro at some point. But, you know, now, you know, dudes can vlog, you know, dudes can go, you know, win contests or, you know, participate in contests. Guys can, you know, kind of keep it local and, you know, kind of do jams, street rides, you know, and then film video parts, obviously traditional ways like that. And it kind of blurred the lines of everything. So now, you know, I kind of, each guy that we work with, it's more of a personal thing. And I kind of explain to them really clear kind of where they're at. And they kind of clearly explain to me where they'd like to be. And we kind of work together on achieving that goal together. You know what I mean? And, you know, obviously sometimes it doesn't work out. You know, we've had some guys leave, you know, but by and large, my intentions are pure and they're good. And I think, you know, I have the experience to kind of help these guys, so they trust me. And then, you know, more times than not, it works out. So, but it definitely is tough. I mean, sponsorship is a big thing in BMX where, you know, a lot of kids ride to get sponsored, but I try to explain that if they just ride for the passion and the fun of it and the love of it, the rest will come. And I mean, think about those situations I talked about, you know, Corey, you know, was, you know, when Corey was riding that bowl at House Park, was he trying to get sponsored? No, he was doing what he loved, which was roasting a bowl. And then it came to him. So that's what I try to explain to riders, that it'll come to you if you just put the time and the effort and the passion into it.
Absolutely. And that kind of brings me to my next point here, which was, as someone who's been involved with BMX for over 30 years, you have been there for all the trends, you know, to shift significantly. With the rise and fall of print media and the shift to digital, the digital space, we have started to see the popularity in vlogs and podcasts rise, with the crowd moving away from the more traditional BMX media. You have been one of the few older riders to support vlogs, with Cult endorsing people like Anthony Panza, Mikey Tyra, Dan Foley. All of those guys do vlogs, but Anthony in particular has a channel with over 500,000 followers on it. So my question to you, Robbie, is would you agree that in today's day and age, sponsored riders can bring more to the table than just their skill on a bike and are able to use their content and relationships with the BMX community to create long-lasting sponsors rather than following the path that most pro riders have taken?
Yeah, it's a new world. And, you know, first and foremost, though, you know, Panza, Foley, and Tyra are, you know, amazing bike riders, you know, and really cool dudes. So that kind of builds the foundation. You know, they're great at bike riding. They're really cool to be around. And then they've kind of branched off in their own ways and pushed it in different directions as far as vlogging and kind of video content and what have you. But Panza in particular is really interesting that, you know, he's created this community and this following. And I think it's really inspiring to see that. And I think the fact that we've supported him and then in turn he supports the brand through everything he does, it really is a you know, kind of a unique thing. And it helps so much because he reaches such a large audience that might be new to BMX. They might just watch his channel for entertainment purposes. They might not even be like real, you know, riders. They're just attracted to the content he puts out, and then they'll become a rider. And then that's helping grow BMX. And obviously we're going to support that. So yeah. And I think that's what I was kind of saying before. There's so many different options on how you can do it now. And I would never try to discourage a rider from doing it, how they felt passionate about. You know, if I see that they're passionate about it and they're dedicated, I'm going to support that. You know what I mean? And kind of, you know, realize that, yeah, I am an older guy. So, you know, I have to kind of, you know, the youth always wins in my opinion. And they have the great ideas and, you know, Panza's had some great ideas, you know, and, you know, just as the other guys have it also. But, you know, I think I listen to all of them.
Absolutely. And, you know, something to really recognize about Panza in particular is that, as you said, he is more than just a vlogger. His riding is actually insane. I was watching a thing earlier because I'll be honest, I watched a lot of his vlogs, but I actually did not watch the video that you guys released called Panza Turns Pro or is Pro.
Yeah.
I had no fucking idea that this guy is able to do a wall ride to flare on street. That fucking blew my mind. I have pretty much never seen that. That is like strictly Chris Kyle shit. And for him to pull that and like, it just blew my mind. I had to watch that 4 or 5 times just to figure out what the fuck happened, you know?
Totally. And I think it was crazy because, you know, we were kind of pressuring him to get a real, you know, fucking full part done. And, you know, he didn't have a lot of time. So, you know, that part, you know, his Welcome to Pro part is like, you know, wasn't filmed over a long period of time. You know, it was kind of, you know, maybe 6 months, you know what I mean? But it shows you like how passionate he was and knew that, you know, hey, it's cool that I vlog and everything, but I got to back it up with, you know, what I really do and show my talent. And I think that's what was so exciting for me. It was like, yeah, we have his personality and we know what that is and it's fun to watch and it's entertaining, but he's also an amazing bike rider. So I like when things are, you know, kind of backed up and, you know, for the top guys, you know, if you were to ever meet any of them, you know, which I hope most riders get to, you know, when they get to meet a Dakota or a Chase, you know, or a Hawk or a Dehart, you know, they immediately realize like, man, they're so fucking cool. They're just good people and they're down for BMX. And then that's why I always push for them to get the most because, you know, that's what a cult guy should be, you know, and they embody that.
Absolutely. And funny that you bring up Dehart because on my desk right now in the studio, I have an iPad going and there's a clip from the Hawaii trip that you guys did where he's got this old camera and he's running, like pretending to shoot it like a gun. He's doing like, you know, little somersaults and shit. I love that. That's hilarious. Yeah.
He's so funny, dude.
I think it's so cool that BMX is starting to change in the way that people can get into it and become, you know, a big part of the scene through different ways now. You don't have to, you know, be the best rider in the world. You don't have to push yourself at contests all the time. You don't have to do that kind of stuff. You can go a different route with it now and make a career out of BMX, which is so fucking cool to me. You know, if you look at how many vloggers there are now and how many people put out content like that, it's so cool to me that that's a possibility. And, you know, with the internet, that is totally what happens. And I guess there is kind of a, you know, it sucks, unfortunately, that print media is dead and that traditional way of BMX media is kind of gone. And even BMX DVD sales have really dropped, I would say. because a lot of people don't have DVD players anymore, which blew my mind because I released my video just over a year ago, my second one, and the sales were a lot different this time. However, more people viewed it. And that was because people don't have DVD players, which kind of blew my mind, you know? Like, that was only, I released my first video 4 years ago. And then 3 years later, you know, I didn't get as many people, but
the landscape's changing so quickly, and how we kind of absorb media and information it's more a societal thing, how fast it's changing. And I'm old school, so I wanted to stay traditional, you know, and stuff you can hold and actually, you know, tangible shit you can read and kind of hold in your hand. It's so rare. Everybody, you know, where's the download, or where's the link? Or you're like, wait, oh man, I just, you know, I'd like a magazine and a DVD, you know, but it's so, like you said, it's so rare. It's the dying breed for sure.
Yeah, I had people that bought DVDs that didn't have DVD players because it had a booklet in it, and then they just asked me to send them a link online for the video. So I was like, I guess that works. Yeah. But yeah, just so weird, eh?
Yeah, it's changing so fast, and you know, and then it's funny. You got guys like Trey that, you know, have a VHS player somehow.
Yeah, absolutely. To talk about Trey a little bit, Trey has always been one of my top 5 riders of all time. And you had brought him on with Fit. And then when you guys had switched, he was one of the first people to leave Fit and come to Cult right away, you know, day one. And he was with you guys for, I think, 8-9 years. And, you know, you guys he left on good terms, which is really cool. And like, it's just, I don't know. I think it's so nice whenever we can see a relationship go from the beginning to end and it works out really well, you know? And you guys obviously still support Trey to this day with all the stuff that he's doing, you know, Swamp Fest, everything. Like, he has definitely played a big role the last few years on bringing BMX together. Yeah.
Yeah. It goes back to what we were saying before. You know, he's one of those pivotal guys that, you know, kind of takes it upon himself and just pulls his socks up and gets it done and gets Swamp Fest done, and it grows every year. And, you know, it takes a ton of shit for it, you know, from haters or whatever, but it just shows you his passion is so much bigger than that, and it can just transcend that. And, you know, even when he asked me, you know, hey, I might, you know, leave Cult, you know, what do you think? You know, I have this opportunity at Sabrosa and Sparky's, and, you know, what do you think? And I just said, yeah, you know, it's in Florida. You're close to it. You're a big part of that. You know, I gave him my blessing, and, you know, we're friends to this day, and then it didn't get weird. And it's kind of actually, like you said, it's really cool that we can still be down and not be, you know, kind of bitter. And mostly it's because he's just a good dude and he's passionate about BMX, and I respect that. So, and that's helped BMX grow because he puts on awesome events. Like you said, it brings the community together, and then we can all vibe on that. And that goes back to what we were saying. You know, it just pushes the positivity of BMX, and I love it. You know, I can't. Well, hopefully Swamp Fest does happen in October. It's much needed right now. This crazy pandemic is, you know, kind of put a damper on everything. It's going to be great to, you know, get together with the homies and just have a good time.
Absolutely. And, you know, it's crazy that history repeats itself, because if you remember back in 1999 or, you know, early 2000s, when you left T1, Joe Rich gave you his blessing, and then moving on to Fit, you know, and now it's just same thing, but with 2 different people. I think that's really cool, you know?
You got to take those moments forward. You got to pay him forward because, you know, Joe was, you know, cool enough to do it for me, and I was, you know, obviously cool enough to do it for Trey. So I think when those moments don't get paid forward, that's when we fail, you know, as a community, and that sucks. But it also is awesome when it does work out the right way.
Absolutely. And You know, you mentioned that Trey gets some hate for like doing Swamp Fest and stuff, and I think that shit is so whack. I can't believe that people
Yeah.
get pissed about fucking him, you know, making a bit of money off of Swamp Fest. Like there was somebody that said that he makes like 50 grand just by doing Swamp Fest, and the guy's a pro BMX rider. Like I don't know if you guys know this, pro BMX riders don't make a ton of money, and like if he's gonna bring a jam, you know. He has probably the biggest jam in BMX other than Battle of Hastings every year that brings the community together. I think absolutely the work and the amount of shit that he goes through in order to do that. Like I've hosted jams that have maybe 200 people that show up tops. And that shit is like, I do it for free. I end up losing money because I give out my own hard-earned cash that I make on my part-time job. And I do it for the love. And like to see that he's actually able to monetize it and make money truly is like inspiring. You know, he's found a way to be able to do something within BMX, and he's able to put all of his heart and soul into it because he doesn't have to stress about working a part-time job or doing something stupid, you know?
Yeah. And I think it's interesting because I think I guess maybe, I don't know where people would learn this information, you know, whether it is through the media or not, but, you know, nobody really has any idea what any of this stuff costs to do and what it takes to run a brand or an event or, you know, and that's what sucks because people think everybody's a millionaire. You know what I mean? Like Cult is a small business. You know, we have, you know, 5 employees, you know what I mean? And then the team. So, you know, that's for what we're doing, you know, brands of our size have like 25, 30 employees, you know what I mean? And we're doing it on a skeleton crew. That way everybody can kind of share in it and we can take care of the team to the best of our ability. You know, meanwhile, you know, you're busting your butt, you're working long hours, you're trying, you know, you already have like a difficult retail market to sell to. You know, think about how many BMX core shops there are. It's only, you know, a handful truly BMX only. And then the mom and pop shops that have, you know, that carry BMX, their focus is other places like, you know, mountain or road or what. So, you know, we're constantly fighting for respect. And I think people lose sight of that a lot. And they think it's a lot easier than it is, you know, and you have good shops that carry BMX still, you know, I don't know where we would be if we lose that. So, you know, that's a really important thing. You got to support your local shop, you know, to the best of your ability in order to kind of keep this whole kind of community ecosystem going.
Yeah, especially right now with the pandemic, you know, there's a local skate park. It's an indoor skate only, and I think they allow scooters there. It's about 30 minutes from where I live. And unfortunately, after, you know, being open for, I think they were the longest indoor park in Canada that was open. They unfortunately just had to shut down the other day, and they posted a video of them today ripping out the ramps at this place because there's nothing they can do. You know, like, especially in Canada, at least we're lucky enough here where I've been off work since March, but I'm getting a government check of $2,000 every month, which pays my bills, which is nice. But like, you know, it'd be nice to be able to work so I can make more and be able to like really, I don't know, just have control of my life and not feel super stressed about stuff. But businesses especially are getting fucked in this situation because there's nothing that they get. Like my dad, he owns his own tattoo shop, and after building his, you know, career and building his name up over 25 years, he has no way to bring in people right now. Like he's had people booked in. Like in January, he had people booked until September, and there was nothing that he could do when all this stuff happened. He can't have people in, and he'll be one of the last people to open, unfortunately.
This pandemic has decimated some industries and, you know, some businesses, and I think that's the most shocking thing about it. You know, obviously it's serious. You know, we know it's real, but it just seems so. I don't know. It was. You know, when it popped up, we got lucky because bicycle repair was deemed essential. So I told, you know, my guys, I said, hey, listen, you know, we'll be smart about it. You know, we'll social distance. We'll do all the things you're supposed to do. But I don't want to stop. You know, I want to continue to support. The only way we're going to be able to support our community and keep things going is to stay open. And, you know, obviously some people had different opinions on it. Some, oh, you're risking your life by going out every day. And I just said, I didn't care. It was more important to me that my employees and my team riders got their check and got paid, rather than, kind of me worrying about, getting a cold, or the flu, or, even if it is way worse than I think. I figured I'd cross that bridge if it ever happened. And luckily we've been fine. And, hopefully we're towards the tail end of this thing. I'm hoping, you know what I mean? And I just want the cool thing about BMX, it can weather these storms. It's gone through so many crazy things, 9/11, so many different times in history where, the economies have been really affected, but BMX has made it through, and I think it's because the core user in BMX and the core community is so passionate about it. They don't want it to die, and they won't let it die, and it'll continue to thrive even in tough times. And, obviously all my respect goes out to the people that care about it. And we just got to keep together and try to keep this thing moving on the right track, regardless of pandemics and, rioting that's going on right now as well is affecting everything. And, some of my closest friends have had businesses that got looted last night, and it breaks my heart. I can't imagine. I mean, we had a break-in at Cult a few weeks ago, and it just bummed me out. But at the same time, like, we're not going to stop, and we're going to find ways to get through this together.
Yeah, it blows my mind that, like, people all over the world are seeing what's happening right now in, Minnesota as well as LA, like these huge riots all across, the states right now. Yeah. And, it's all for a good reason. Like, we all saw that video. We all fucking saw how fucked up it is. We all saw, and like there was a lot of people in the comments there that were saying, oh, well, why wouldn't they push that cop off of him? Like, why wouldn't somebody do anything? It's like, because there's 4 guys armed with guns that are licensed to kill. Yeah. And like, unfortunately, in that moment, there's nothing you can fucking do other than film it. And I am so fucking happy that somebody did, because that shit is fucked. And I seriously hope that guy spends the rest of his life in fucking jail, because that is so messed up. It pisses me off. I don't know, I try to stay out of the news and I try to, like, steer clear of that shit. But over the last few days, I've been checking every day, multiple times a day, just to see, like, keep up with the situation and know what's going on. And honestly, like, it sucks because people's businesses are now getting broken into, and like a lot of the people too are Black Americans that have come from the ghetto that fucking worked their whole life to get somewhere, and now they're being robbed. But like, it's just crazy, like, unfortunately it kind of went that way.
Yeah. It's a really strange time right now, and hopefully change comes out of it. That's all I can, kind of hope for, but man, talk about a weird time, to go 85 days in a pandemic and then straight into this kind of looting, rioting kind of thing we're dealing with now. It's just shocking. And I totally agree. I'm sure there's been a lot more instances, obviously, of racism that hasn't been caught on camera. And I just think we're lucky that this time around it was caught on camera, and it's undeniable, and you can't defend it. It is what it is. That man, that cop killed that guy, period. And he needs to pay for it, and hopefully change can come out of this, and we can elect better officials, and we can take care of ourselves better. But fuck, it is tough times right now.
Yeah, and you just made a really good point there, that we need to elect better officials. That is one of the biggest moves right there that'll get people out of there. Like, these protests, say what you want, at the end of the day, the fucking power of the people will take over. Like, there's more of us than there are of them. And if that's the way they're going to be, then we got to fucking do something about it, because that is not acceptable. And like, people have been talking about a certain instance in BMX where a certain team manager, I'm not going to say anything else other than that, he used the N-word towards a guy, and that really fucking boiled my blood, man, because BMX was the one thing that's like, as a white dude who was nerdy as a kid and always got made fun of and shit, that was the one community that like really made me come out of my shell and really made me just stoked to be alive, I guess. And like, I don't think that shit belongs anywhere near BMX, especially because of like what it's all about.
Man, that is so true. I think that's profound that you said that, because that's probably another thing that really drew me to it. It was the fact that that as much as it was my thing, it was me and my buddies, but it didn't carry all the baggage of high school and all the bullshit of cliques and jocks and dickheads that we were trying to get away from, essentially. You know what I mean? We were able to get away from it by riding. And yeah, there's no place for any behavior, racism or anything like that. And I think that's what's so exciting about BMX right now. There's so many different facets of it. Like you said, you can make it your own thing and do it however you want. I mean, think about even the girl riding. The girl riding's never been as strong as it is right now. It's amazing how much they've progressed. And that's the thing. It's all encompassing right now, and we need to protect that. And if there is some bullshit going on, we need to call it out, and it needs to go away. And we need to protect what we have, because we do have something special.
Absolutely. And, you just mentioned girl riding, and there's two females right now that I have to give a huge fucking shout out to.
Yeah.
One of them being Angie Marino, and the other being my very good friend, Beatrice. She runs the Bloom with Angie.
Yeah.
Those two girls have done so much in the last year for women's BMX. And honestly, I feel like they have pretty much single-handedly put women's BMX on the map, because you're starting to see all of these girls get sponsored. All of these girls are starting to push each other and go further. Like the girls in Russia right now, holy shit, dude. Those girls are fucking killing it right now. Like, it just blows my mind. I'm so happy to see that, like, I don't know, BMX has always been a fucking sausage sport. There's always been so many dudes, and like, just to get women in on it and get women's perspective on it really opens it up a lot more.
And for them to progress it as far as they have and actually really fucking bring it. I was at Ocean Beach Skate Park with Angie in Paris one day, and I had my back towards the bowl, and I just heard these tires just ripping around the bowl. And I was like, oh, who's here? Dennis Anderson or something? And I turned around, and it was fucking Angie in Paris, just ripping this bowl. And it was like so inspiring, you know what I mean? And the fact that it's going to make it all the way to the Olympics next year, it's on another level. And I think I just want to, support it in the way I can and kind of help protect those new kind of, I don't know, kind of lanes in the game right now. There's so many lanes, and I just, it's so exciting because that you can just pick however you want it to be and follow that. So yeah, it's exciting. As rough as it is, strange times is exciting times.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about coronavirus. And, something that I love is that the whole world has been affected by this, and that, there's a big shortage of supplies right now, face masks in particular. And you guys at Cult have stepped up and started making face masks, and not only just selling them, but also donating a bunch of them to healthcare workers and hospitals. And that right there, I think, is such a solid move. You guys have been trying to stop the spread, at least in your particular way, because you guys understand the damage that it's doing to our communities,
Totally. And I think that the interesting thing about it is most of the accessories or little side things we do, or we try to keep them real family orientated. So even the masks in particular, we found out that we could get the mask from Upcycle LA. It's a company that makes, t-shirts and soft goods in LA. They're American made. They recycle most of their garments. And so we were able to get the mask. And then Javi, one of the employees at Cult, his girlfriend, Leslie, has a sewing machine. She was able to sew the label on. So, really homegrown, really family type thing. And obviously we sell out quickly because it's just such a small kind of tight knit family thing. It's not this big, kind of 15,000 units from China. You know what I mean? We don't do that. We try to keep these, that's why we run out. We sell out of a lot of the small accessory stuff quickly, whether it's the jewelry we get from our buddy Billy Maltosis in New York, or Ryder Poe's mom, in LA, and they're just friends of the brand that we kind of bring in to kind of be a part of what we're doing. And, we obviously love them. So it makes it all that much more important, Yeah, I definitely got the email on the mask that we could, get a huge shipment, from overseas for, a cheaper price or whatever. And I just wasn't about that. I wanted to keep it, natural and homegrown and a part of, and feel good about it. You know what I mean? It's all about doing the best we can in this fucked up situation. You know what I mean? I don't want to exploit anything. And we still get called out, by certain people on, in the comments and stuff, that we're, look at our prices. Our prices are so low compared to other brands, because I know what it's like to not have a lot in your pocket when you need a new part. You know what I mean? So I always try to really price things, kind of, conservatively and with the rider in mind. And, it's still misinformation a lot. People think, like you're trying to make some money off of this. And it's like, that's a handmade piece. That's a handmade American piece right there. Obviously it's going to cost a couple bucks more, but you know what I mean? But that's only on like an accessory, like on the hard goods and stuff. I really try to get aggressive and try to, charge as kind of the least we can before it actually hurts.
Absolutely. And, something that I wanted to mention is, to the people out there that are saying that you're trying to make money off of this pandemic. Yeah, you are. You're trying to make money to give back to the community. You guys are supporting a homegrown business by buying these masks and selling them. You're giving them back to the community. Like, you're literally giving these masks to healthcare workers as well. So to me, like,
totally.
Yeah, it just doesn't make any sense that people want to hate on that. That really kind of pisses me off. But and also something that you had mentioned there, that you've been there before, where like it's been super hard to pay for stuff, and I've been there obviously. Like, most people in their early 20s have to go through that. And something that I wanted to mention is that on the Cult website, like obviously if you can, go to a bike shop first and support them. But if you can't, go to the Cult website, because you guys are able to do 4 easy payments on there. Are you not?
Yeah. The new app we have from Sezzle, it just breaks up the payments, and it's just easier to kind of get, some of the bigger items. If you needed a wheel or something, that, 4 payments of a lower price is obviously easier to do. And I was surprised how many people use it. But then I remembered, like, oh yeah, it's annoying when you have to, when you burn through your tires or your grips, and it even you could pay a grip off in 4 payments. It's like a couple of bucks. Like it's so much easier than having to do full pop every time. So yeah, I think we're constantly looking for ways to kind of make it easier, and keep people on their bike, and I think that's one thing. People will say, oh, you have a huge team, or you have this, or you give us a lot of stuff away. And it's like, well, I actually wouldn't do the brand if I couldn't do that. Like if I couldn't support these people that I'm passionate about and I think are amazing, why would I do a brand? So that's kind of the mixed signal that I think people could get confused on. In one sense, oh, they have this crazy big team, but in another sense, it's like, it doesn't really feel like a team. It feels like a crew or a family, and I want to support each one as much as I can. And that's kind of the silver lining of it.
Well, and something to mention too is that just because your family, of cult riders is so big, it actually brings a lot of great things with it, where you guys are able to go to pretty much any country in the world and go and film and have somebody there repping your brand, and somebody there that you can trust to show you spots, to take you somewhere. Whereas a lot of brands don't have that, right? Like there's a lot of brands that don't do anything within like the media world because they can't. They don't do trips or anything like that because they don't have people to show them areas, Yeah,
and I think that's what's so exciting when you meet you meet a guy like Philip Bath from Greece, or, any of the Colombian Andres Ochoa, the Colombian dudes, the Chile dudes, Andre Scatica, Thomas Fuentes, these guys, they're so gnarly. They're so gnarly in what they do. And it's so exciting, we have so many places we still want to get to, and that's a major goal. As soon as this kind of travel ban kind of gets back to normal, I mean, even Canada, we've cooped it. We haven't gone to Canada as much as we should, and that's definitely on our list. And I want to get back to Toronto and Vancouver and all the hot spots. You know what I mean? It's just so crucial to try to kind of keep this, the travel vibe of it too. Everybody's itching. All the team riders. When are we going? When can we go? As soon as we get the green light, we're going to get right back on it. I can't wait.
Hell yeah. If you guys do come to Toronto area, please shoot me a message, because I would absolutely love to come and show you guys around. And the city that I live in is the city of Kitchener-Waterloo. And you might know it, you might not. But a lot of big names came from here. James Steele.
Totally.
Yeah. John Heaton. The first ever 900 was landed in Kitchener. There's been Dakota Roche has rode here actually a couple times. And the footage that I've seen of him riding here still to this day is probably the craziest shit to ever happen in this city.
Oh, that's so awesome. Yeah, Dak loves Toronto. He always talks about it. I haven't been there since like the bike shows and kind of the La Rev contests that were there. And man, did we have a good time. They were typically during the winter, so we couldn't street ride much, but we always just so enjoyed the Canadian scene and the riders and just, it's hard. You guys have a harsh winter. You know what I mean? I grew up in New York, so I dealt with the same thing. And I think that creates very kind of battle-tested riders, because you have, only so many months to actually get it done. And then you're kind of, dealing with some weather issues. And it makes you, really, really be like psyched when you do get on your bike. So I love that energy that most Canadian riders have.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's like played such a big role in BMX for me, at least, is the fact that like over this winter, I tried to do 2 podcasts a week, because for me to get to a skate park in the winter is already pretty difficult. The closest one is an hour and a half away. And, typically that's 3 hours of driving just to get there and back. It costs a lot to go to them. And obviously I'm going to go and support them. But yeah, I just tried to focus on podcasts all winter, because at least that way, instead of just me enjoying BMX, everybody that listens gets to enjoy a part of BMX, and it kind of reminds them of summer. It gets them stoked and interested on what's going to happen in the next, year.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Hell yeah. So going back to the team side of things, there's one particular rider that I would love to know some stories about, and that would be Eddie. So Eddie is your right-hand man, and I had him on the show a couple weeks ago, and I gotta say, man, he was so kind, so nice. He hit me up after I did a podcast with Denham Cox, and it was just, he has been such a great guy to talk to. He kind of actually set up this whole podcast with you today, which is awesome. But tell us some stuff about Eddie. How'd you meet Eddie?
So I met Eddie at like the local parks around here. He doesn't live too far from us. And I just kind of always was into his vibe, and the fact that he was like, kind of knew everybody somehow. I mean, literally everybody. Like, and it's so fucking cool, because, I saw like myself in him a bit. Like when I was younger, I tried to know like everybody from all different scenes, and just at least know a little bit about everything out there that had to do with BMX. And some people are a little weird. They're like, why does he do that? Or how come, and it's like, you either have it or you don't, and you're either interested in that much of it or not. And I think that's one of the things I like about Eddie, is the fact that I know he is that interested in it, and he's knowledgeable about it. So we can vibe really easily. You know what I mean? Because he knows I'm interested. I watch every video I possibly can. I try to absorb as much as possible, even now. You know what I mean? I'm old, and I still am super passionate about everything that comes out. So to have a younger dude who's in his prime and kind of, I can chop it up with and vibe with on it is really cool. And look how rad he is. He's so confident in himself that, he can hang out with different crews and still not have any issues. And I also really respect that.
Absolutely. Yeah, Eddie's he's a one of a kind guy, you know? It was really interesting
Indeed.
talking to him.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, he has this like crazy story about finding like a baby girl in a dumpster and becoming a hero in Santa Ana, which is like,
Of course.
yeah, so crazy, man.
Only Eddie. Oh my God. That's so awesome.
Yeah, like only him, eh? Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, moving on from that. So I actually have went all this time without talking about how Cult really started here. So let's jump
Oh,
into that. So back in 2009, September 29th was a big day for BMX, as you had cut ties with Fit Bike Co. to create a brand known as Cult. When you left, Chase Hawk, Chase Dehart, Dakota Roche, and Trey Jones all followed you on your journey to create the best brand in BMX. This shows just how loyal they are to you and the fact that everyone other than Trey, who left on good terms, is still riding for Cult. And it shows just the foundation that, of Cult was built on respect and friendship, something you had been looking for right after leaving Fit. How does it feel to have
yeah.
such an awesome crew behind you, even almost 11 years later?
I mean, they were so responsible for making it happen. I think the one pivotal moment was, we were in a drainage ditch riding a wall ride, with Dak and Chase, and a bunch of locals had come down, and they were riding. This is when we were still doing Fit. We were finishing up the video for Fit, and but it had already started. The wheels were already in motion to kind of push me out of Fit. So, there were lawyers involved, and it was ugly, and I didn't really know what was going to happen yet. So I was shooting a photo, and I was like 100 yards away from the guys, and these kids were just, hey, can I try your bike? So they were like riding Dak's bike and Chase's bike, and they were just so excited to meet a couple pros, just on a random day in a ditch in Southern California. And I was just like, in that moment, I kind of was like, well, obviously I'm being pushed out of something I built, but like, these moments are what it's about, and connecting with people and doing cool shit. And I was just like, kind of in my own head and thinking. And then I got a call from my lawyer, and he was like, yeah, they kind of want you out of there or whatever, blah, blah, blah. So I got a little emotional, obviously, because it was a heavy thing at the time. And Dak and Chase rode over, and they were like, what's up? And I was like, I think my time's up over there, and they were like, well, fuck it, man. We'll fucking quit right now. Let's do this. Like, let's do it, do our own shit. And I just, they kind of empowered me and encouraged me to have the confidence to do it, cause I knew we would do it together. And, they were so supportive as friends and lent, their kind of encouragement and expertise at the time that I needed. And, it was so awesome. Like, it was just so exciting. And then everything kind of just fell into place from there. We learned so much from doing Fit that I knew a lot of the pitfalls of the bike industry, obviously. So we were able to ramp Cult up pretty quickly because I already had that knowledge, and I didn't want to make the same mistake twice or things like that. So it was such an exciting time to progress as fast as possible, kind of turn and burn, get everybody, get them paid for their commitment to me. And almost immediately we were kind of just on our way.
Yeah, I had just started riding right around that time, and I remember my dad, because we were talking about Fit, and like, there's one particular clip from the Fit Life video where Dakota tries to do a 180 over this rail and lands face first in a fucking puddle, and we were watching that. And then, the next week he's like, hey, did you hear that Robbo actually is starting his own company? And that was like just kind of a rumor that he had heard.
Yeah.
A little while later, sure enough, Cult comes out. And I think that Let 'Em Talk was actually the first BMX DVD that I ever owned. And it was one of the videos that made me fall in love with the idea of filming and editing. And to this day, I still watch that video pretty consistently, like I would say a couple times a year. And I don't know, just the way that it was filmed and just everything, and knowing the situation that you guys were in at the time of filming that, just kind of, I don't know, it played such a big role in the way that I've always looked at Cult, you know?
Man, that's awesome, because it was an interesting time. You know, not only was I kind of dealing with, you know, kind of the pressures of starting something new, I had lost my dad at that time, and it really made me kind of just dive into work, like, you know, kind of head first. So, I mean, think about, you know, Let 'Em Talk. We filmed that thing in like 6 months, and it was just like, you know, a couple of trips and then some other clips put together, and it was so organic and so naturally done and kind of flowing out of us that it built the foundation for the brand to kind of stand on its feet. And it was such a stressful time, but like a fun time as well, you know? So, and you know, shit, I mean, having, you know, Alex Kennedy and going to Austin and, you know, Chase showing us around his hometown, and like, yeah, it was, we had some epic times right in the beginning.
Yeah, it's crazy to me that 11 years later, Alex Kennedy, Bobby Simmons, all of these guys that were in that video are still on Cult to this day. You know, that just shows right then and there the kind of support that you guys needed and the support that you were willing to give these guys, you know, and like the fact that that whole crew is so loyal that it is a family. And, you know, like we mentioned earlier, even with Trey leaving, you guys are still a family. Like, I know for a fact that both you and Trey would go out of your way to help each other to this day, obviously, you know, like,
totally.
Yeah, Cult is totally a family. And, you know, like I said in the beginning there, you guys have a cult-like following, which is so funny because of the name, you know?
It is pretty ironic. I actually think that's like one of the cooler things about it, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, when you guys actually started Cult, you kind of came out with a bang right away. Like, a lot of the stuff that you guys released right away, as in frames, bars, all that shit, looked so good. And, like, I don't know, the V1 OS frame in that orange color has always been one of my favorite frames, and I was so sad that I never actually got that frame. I remember wanting it for so long, and who knows, I might take my Hawk frame and raw it and find that same orange and fucking paint it, because
that'd be sick.
Yeah, I would love to own that frame. You know, that was one that really drew my attention to Cult.
Right on.
Yeah, and you guys had the Bad Boy frame, a couple other frames, and they were all American made when you guys started too, through FBM and Solid,
it was
right?
Awesome. Yep, being able to work with Solid and FBM on you know, American made frames was really cool. It's just a shame that it's, you know, doing American made frames is such a hard business, and it's so hard to keep it going. I mean, we were trying to support the Solid and FBM so much, and they were stoked. You know, it just, I mean, it even got to the point where sometimes they were making more Cult stuff than their own stuff, but it was keeping the lights on, so they were stoked. But it's just so hard. I'm not giving up on it. I've got a couple leads now that we might be able to do a couple USA made frame runs here. We're just trying to really make sure it's something we can do. And I've got a couple leads, so I want to see if I can push that through, you know, definitely maybe the early part of next year.
Hell yeah. As a, you know, consumer of Cult, I'll say this right now. I would absolutely love it if it was a possibility to do custom Cult frames, US made, you know, like same shit that FBM was doing when they were around. My buddy has a custom FBM frame, and like he's been riding that for years. And it is one of those things that it goes from, you know, just a BMX frame to a piece of art really quickly. Like it's something that is created specifically for you by you. You know, you just had to get other people to make it, obviously, but yeah.
Totally. No, it is something special. I agree.
Absolutely. Well, I got a couple more questions for you, if that's all right. Let's see here.
Yeah.
Oh, dude. Okay, so let's talk about some of the collaborations you guys have done at Cult. I absolutely loved the Bart Simpson bike and the Duff Cruiser. How did that come along?
So we were at a Agenda trade show, and Adam Roy, our graphics guy, was actually in the booth, drawing a picture of Bart Simpson. He's a huge Bart Simpsons fan, and at that time, Santa Cruz had done a skateboard line with them, with the Simpsons. And the lady who was in charge of that was walking by our booth and saw Adam drawing the Bart Simpson. And she said, "Oh, do you like the Simpsons?" And Adam was like, "Yeah, duh." Kind of gave her a little toot. And then she was like, "Well," and she was like, "Well, would you like to make bikes?" And we were like, "Fuck yeah," and then, so then the rest is history. And it was crazy how corporate it was, but we got it done. And then, I think collaborating is important because it brings, more eyes on brands and more eyes on BMX in general. So, now to obviously have a great relationship with Vans where we do the grip and the tires, and we've done, and we're about to do our 5th collaboration shoe coming out in October. It's been a great relationship with Vans. We're going to do a bike with FTP for their 10-year anniversary, a gold 20-inch BMX bike. It's really badass. I'm psyched on that coming out in holiday as well. And we're doing a cruiser with Huff that has like pot leaf tires on it and some really cool shit. So I'm really excited about that too. So I think as crazy as this year's been, the first part, I think it's going to finish with a bang because we have a bunch of cool shit lined up. And yeah, the collab stuff's exciting because it definitely makes a lot of noise and keeps, when BMX gets the nod from other industries or other genres, it's always a cool thing, like the Simpsons thing, like who would ever thought that could have happened, and it did. So yeah, I love doing that shit.
Yeah, that is like, I remember seeing those bikes for the first time and just being blown away that like a company could do that, like that somebody could, like that you guys were able to work with the Simpsons and create a bike. I don't know why that blew my mind so much, but like, I guess it's just because I was so young at the time. But like, even to this day, looking back, like I'm real sad that I wasn't the age I am now and had, money set aside because I would totally own one of those bikes.
It's crazy how timing works. You're like, fuck, I would have got that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, maybe with some of your collabs in the future here, we'll try and get one of those in the studio.
Right on.
Hell yeah. So, of course, we can't forget about all the work that you guys have done with Vans. The work that you have done with them has been amazing. The shoes, always the coolest shoes, like especially these, the new high tops that you guys did, the skate highs. Yeah. Holy shit, those things were really cool. And I remember the V1s with the orange, like, the orange on them and everything. That was another really cool shoe. But yeah, how did you guys, get hooked up with Vans, and what was the process like, when you wanted to do the tires and do the grips?
So I was a team rider for Vans for many years, and then kind of always developed a good relationship with the brand in general. And they kind of always, once you're in with Vans, it's, as cliche as it sounds, it really is a family over there. Steve Van Doren is, one of the original, founders, and he's just so passionate about BMX. And I mean, literally, it as much as it is a skate shoe brand, it's a BMX shoe brand, because the shows and early history of the brand were both BMX and skate. So the respect for BMX is really big over there, even though, obviously it's grown to be a global kind of $1 billion company. They never forget their roots and the people that helped them get them there. So it's so inspiring to work with a company that's that big, but still gives a shit about a little, brand like, BMX brand like Colt, where they're like, hey, we want to work and collaborate with brands like you because you're the core of these action sports that built, what we are today. So just feeling that respect and that vibe kind of always, I'm Vans for life, and the fact that we can do the grip and tire is so cool. And the fact that they, the grip is made by ODI in the USA, and then the tire is just really actual good all around tire. I just think it's awesome. And then obviously doing the shoes just takes it up another level, where we're able to kind of put our creativity on their canvas of a shoe, and it comes out every time. I've loved what they've done and how we've collaborated. And the fact that, we share a lot of team riders, and, we do a lot of trips together and stuff like that. It just, I don't know where Colt would be without Vans. It's been the best relationship, and it makes me want to do that more for other people as well. It inspires me to, like, you know, give opportunities to other brands if something ever comes up. So, yeah, it's definitely good.
Yeah, something that you know, I think is really cool is that when I think of Vans, I instantly think of Cult, and when I think of Cult, I think of Vans. You guys are literally like, you guys go so well together with your branding, your imaging, everything. The stuff you guys have done together is amazing. You know, especially the tires. Like, those tires are so cool because they come in so many different, like, colors and everything. You guys have really focused on making them a great tire for everybody, a great look for everybody. You know, like, I just love that. And the grips, I've been riding those grips for years. Those are my favorite grips for sure.
Dude, that's so good to hear. And, you know, I think that was the thing when we were developing everything. You know, it's so crucial with a grip or a tire because you only get one chance with the mold, you know? So it's like, it's pretty scary, you know, like when you're opening that box, you're like, man, I hope this is dialed. And, you know, both times we got lucky and they were right first go. You know, it usually works out that way, but sometimes, you know, you can get a wrong texture, or the durometer can be too big, you know, where it's too thick or something, or too thin. Either way, you know, it depends. But yeah, to nail both of them was like, we were definitely psyched, because, you know, there's been times where, you know, I've cracked open that box and been like, oh, we fucking cooped it, you know, and it's like, you know, a mold might be, you know, 15, 20 grand. So it you know, it hurts if you do screw it up.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people know that, but the molds for tires and grips, holy shit, those things are so expensive. And it's because they're not...
Pedals are weird. Pedals are expensive. Seats aren't too bad, but yeah, you know, I think some things you probably think like, oh yeah, it can't be that much. And then you find out and you're like, oh, no wonder there's not, you know, just hundreds of choices, you know, because it is hard to do.
Oh, absolutely. And it's also really hard to, you know, put that much money towards it. Just, you have to know that that's like the perfect thing before you send it out, because, you know, unfortunately, it's going to cost you a lot of money if it isn't.
Yeah, one time, funny story with Fit, we had just done our first round of complete bikes, and we had done like, you know, one of the models was red, you know, like lipstick red. It was supposed to be like bright red, like fire engine red. And we cracked open the box and they were literally like pink, like a salmon color. And I just, you know, so that's like whatever, 480 bikes in a container, you know, and it was literally 480 pink bikes, you know, and we were just like, shit. And I was like, okay, we're going to call it salmon, and maybe like a girl will like it. And sure enough, they all sold, but it was pretty scary right away.
Yeah, that's a big step to take, you know, especially when you were at Fit at the time, because I feel like colors were more of a frowned upon thing until, you know, there's one guy in particular, and that man is Aaron Ross. He did so much for the world of BMX, for, like, you know, innovating in colors and everything.
Yeah, he could have pulled the salmon, no problem. But for us, we were like, oh shit, we've cooped it.
Yeah, it's when you think of colors in BMX, at least like back in 2010, instantly I think of Aaron Ross and Sunday. Like, that is the first thing that comes to mind.
Totally.
Oh man, but going back on Vans here, did you guys think it would ever lead to so many cool products? You know, you guys have 3 different shoes that came out, the awesome grips, and again, the tires that come in so many different colors and designs, like camouflage tires, whether they be blue, pink, you know, all these different colors.
Yeah, and I think, you know, man, they support BMX so much with, like, you know, the Bowl series, you know, the Pro series, and then the Park series rather, and then, you know, kind of giving us the opportunity to travel, you know what I mean? Because we're doing, for the next year, we're doing a slip-on and an old school Pro with the BMX sole. So now there's a proprietary BMX sole, which is amazing. It's actually works really well. And the fact that this time around, you know, it's a legitimate BMX shoe, you know what I mean? And it's so rad to watch it progress over the years, and their support of BMX is never wavering. And even when a lot of the other shoe brands have pulled out, they've kind of given up, and bands have stayed true to it. So yeah, I can't wait. It should drop in October. We're going to do a video with it, and yeah, we're just frothing to get it going,
Hell yeah, man. I'm excited for that. I can't wait for another another Vans collab. I think it's going to be really cool.
Awesome.
Hell yeah. So let's see here. I got a couple more. Let's do the fan questions, and then I think we'll end it off here if that's cool.
Nice. Yeah, let's do it.
Alrighty. So Harvester Bikes, he has a question for you. How did you manage, or how do you manage? You must be the busiest guy in BMX.
Shout out to Harvester. Love those guys. Funny question though. Yeah, I think there's moments where, like I was saying a bit earlier, that it's not really it's hard to quantify like exactly what my job title is. You just have to be ready to kind of problem solve all day, every day. So yeah, I try to get up early, get into the office, start on the orders, get the emails going, start problem solving, fixing whatever thing's coming our way, and then try to make time for a little bit of everything each day, and be diligent about it, and actually, give a fuck, like care about it. And even if it does get points where, certain days where it feels, long or like too much, you just that's when you go ride, and, you get a session in, you kind of get a recharge, and you remember why you do it. So, and that comes through just the actual act of riding. You know what I mean? It's how I kind of clear my head and feel better about it. But yeah, I think some of the team guys always joke around. They're like, man, nobody would believe what your average day is like. And I'm like, yeah, it does get pretty crazy, especially Southern California, because there's so many other brands around. So and bike shops and kind of the industry, I can, cross paths with, so many different people in one day. And that's probably the only thing that still keeps me here, because I think, the best riding spots and scenes are on the East Coast, but all the industry's out here. So I kind of, stick out here for now.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to mention that, you mentioned about riding there. I think that it's so fucking cool that pretty much every single full-length video that I've seen of Cult, you have a couple clips in it, because it shows that you actually get out with your crew and that you ride with the Cult team, and that you are more of a public owner rather than a silent owner. Because I feel like most owners of like BMX companies are very quiet. They don't talk about it. Like, I didn't know that Mike Brennan owned Merit until this year, which is so crazy to me, because that's another company that's right out of New York, that area. And I had no idea.
And it's interesting, because I think, I don't want to ever take the spotlight away from the guys, because it's their time, but they're very supportive. You know what I mean? So if we're riding and, they see something of me that they like, they're going to let me know, and they're going to, kind of big me up in the sense of like, yeah, man, get that, they're very supportive. And I think that's what's cool. And I think it's that way with whether it's an employee or a rider, so if Vish is riding, everyone's fucking down for him. If I'm getting something going, they're stoked on that as well. So I think it's so special that we have a crew that is literally just about the session and the good time. It doesn't matter, whether it's a pro guy or an AM guy or a worker or the owner or whatever it is. It all gets respect on a level. And that's why I would even put myself in there at this point, because they're so supportive of it. So I'm like, well, fuck it. Yeah, throw it in there. I'm into it, So it's not my goal by any means, but it's still nice to know, I mean, if I go over the light in a pool, that's really simple, but if Corey gives me a high five or Little John gives me a high five, I'm juiced for the day, that made me feel, like it was all worth it,
Fuck yeah, man. Definitely. Yeah. And like, I don't know, as somebody who like, I really take pride in the people that I film with and the people that I've put in my full length videos, even as, it's not a big like company. It's a crew, literally. That's all how this started. But you know, even with them, I always felt like I needed to show that I can ride as well and that I can do it. And
Yeah.
that was like, you know, I'm definitely not the greatest rider in the world, but I'll tell you now, I've done some pretty fucking crazy shit that I was like, I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to do it, but the people that were beside me and the people that told me, like, you've got this, I owe it to them 100%.
There it is. You know, they gave you that support. So you fucking sent it, you know, because you knew, like, hey, man, these guys think I can do it. I can fucking do it, you know, and man, that's respect. That's when you're at your best, you know?
Fuck yeah. I have to send you a photo after this of something that I did that was like fully with the support of the guys who knew that I was capable of doing it. It's pretty crazy. So I'll send that after the show though.
Definitely.
Oh, also, you mentioned Harvester Bikes. So Anthony at Harvester Bikes, I have known this guy for quite a few years, and he is actually, you know, he's the only shop that I really support nowadays because he is always doing something for the BMX scene. So, like, as somebody who knows Anthony, I gotta tell you right now, this fucking guy works nonstop on making the Toronto BMX scene a better place for BMX riders. Like, he's always doing shop rides, he's always doing jams, he's always doing something within the community. He even came to me when he needed to start a podcast. He wanted to start doing podcasts. I'm not sure if he's done too many of them, but like, he is constantly doing something with BMX, which I love. And like, he's all about local BMX.
Dude, what a beast, man. That's so awesome.
Fuck yeah. All right. So Mason Patrick, he wants to know if you've got any cool stories about starting Cult.
Oh man, I think let's see. Some of the funny things early on were just how everybody was such an individual, you know, like we were saying earlier, you know, how, you know, everyone has this kind of different background of where they've come from. And then we kind of combined it together. So it had so many different flavors and it kind of had something for everybody. I'm trying to think of funny stories, you know, I think just probably the growing pains of like literally building the brand, you know, with your own hands, kind of like starting out in a small unit, you know, and then people kind of, you know, I remember we even got some shit for it to how small it was, but then, you know, going to a, you know, bigger unit and then kind of, you know, obviously within reason, but, you know, now we're in a, you know, a bigger building, and I was really excited to see the progression of it and where it was going. And, you know, I think we're probably we could use another spot, like a new place, you know, but it's hard. I got to keep the overhead low so we can keep everybody supported, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. That's like got to be one of the hardest things, is making sure that everybody is happy, you know?
Yeah, definitely. Totally. Management. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
So, local old school rider, Andrew Barker, really good friend of mine. He wants to know, you know, what made you go pegless? And he just wanted to mention too that he's been riding pegless for almost 20 years just because of you and the way that you rode. He always loved that style, and he loved the idea of just going fast and like, I don't know, not needing to kind of conform to the modern BMX world of, you know, just solid peg tricks all the time.
Yeah, I think I had a midlife, you know, maybe towards the end of T1. I rolled up to the 7-Eleven trails one time with like 4 pegs, maybe a kink grind disc, you know, just triple wall rims, you know, the most ridiculously heavy, beefy bike. And I was just riding, and it was just like really hard to maneuver, and it was just a beast of a bike, you know, maybe a 35, 40 pound bike, you know, and it was just like, fuck, too much, you know. And then, so then I slowly started stripping it down, kind of back to the race roots vibe. And I've just always liked that. And then when I would see guys like Garrett Burns or, you know, some of the other pegless guys, I just get so inspired, you know. And, yeah, I loved how simple it is, you know. And, even back in the day, the Dirt Brothers, you know, a lot of those guys didn't have pegs, and they were so creative. You know, they would do a lot of pedal grind stuff if they were going to grind, or a lot of sprocket grind stuff. And then their bikes were always just super simple, you know? So I think simple is the less is more type thing. That's my favorite, especially looking at a bike too.
Absolutely. And if I can shout out, my favorite pegless rider of all time, Canadian man, Chris Silva, he has always absolutely fucking killed it pegless.
The legend of Chris Silva, huh? Like, how many things has that guy done that people don't even know about that are so ahead of its time and so just kind of like an underground Jedi. Yeah, I fucking trip on that dude so much. But I think that's the interesting thing about BMX, right? There's riders like him all over, that are so creative and so unique and don't really do it for anything other than the love, So maybe not all of their stuff gets covered, but if you ever cross paths with the guy, you're instantly mind blown on how talented they are and how creative. And yeah, he's always been one that was so ahead of his time with anything, kind of riding on his own terms. You know what I mean? It's definitely inspiring.
Absolutely. Yeah. Chris is, he's an absolute legend. We were out riding the other day and we found this, spot that he did a Fufanu on. And in the photo, it looks like the perfect, street quarter pipe. It's 3 feet tall. The transition looks nice. Well, we showed up and I was like, I really want to try and Abubaca this. No fucking way. On the other side of it, there is like a huge 10-foot drop. And then I had no idea about this, but I messaged him like, you are absolutely crazy for doing that. And then he sends me a clip of him doing a pocket wall ride on this. It's like, that blows my fucking mind because the run up, dude, the run up is all rocks. It's all fucked up. Like, there's just no way that any rider could hit this other than Chris. Like, he's just unreal.
I fully agree. And it's funny when you get to spots that you see and you think they're going to be one way and you get there and, the bump's not really a bump, or like you said, it's an uphill gravel pit to the takeoff. And you're like, what the hell? How did this guy do this? Like, yeah, I'm with you. That's happened to me 100 times. Like, oh, I'm going to get to that spot and just kill it. And then you're like, wait, this isn't anything like it looks like in that photo.
Absolutely, right? Photos never do it justice. Oh, man. All righty. Well, Robbie, this has been awesome. I've got one last question for you. What is your advice to the people who are trying to create a successful brand?
I would definitely have a purpose and a creation story and a reason for doing it. I don't think BMX needs any more brands that just do the same shit as the other brands. If you have a unique angle or a unique story, then I would say do it. And without passion and dedication to it, it's not going to work. So, if you step up, you better be ready to dedicate your life to it. And that for it to be successful. And, but yeah, if you have those things, I say go for it, but it's just a matter of, I would never discourage anybody, but it definitely has to tick a few boxes for it to work.
Absolutely. Yeah, I could see that 100%. Robbie, thank you so much for doing this today. This has honestly been a dream come true. I've been following Cult since day one, 2010 till the end. And I don't know, man. It's just been really cool, the fact that you were willing to do this. So thank you.
Dude, congratulations on 50 podcasts, and here's to many more. And then, we'll collaborate in the future sometime for sure, brother. Thank you again.
Fuck yeah. That's what I want to hear. Thanks, Robbie. We'll let you go now. Have a good one. Peace.
Good night, bro. Later.
Alrighty, guys. I just want to say, huge thank you to everybody who's been listening for the last 50 episodes. This has been quite the journey to get here. When I started this a couple of years ago, it was kind of just on a whim. I thought, maybe I'll get a couple episodes out, and 50 later, here we are, and I can promise you right now, we're going to make it to 100. I've got lots of stuff in store for you, and once COVID fucks off, we're going to have a lot of fun with this. So we'll see you guys in the next episode. Have a good one. Peace.